Hey, at least it doesn't take 0 potatoes to kill me.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. We're going to stream now. Hey there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is another nightly Max Colby, Dean Max, Max Dean Esme group. The Max Dean Esme group, part of Red Pill Religion. This is our nightly stream where we invite regulars and patrons to just come on in and talk about issues of the day, philosophical issues, or whatever happens. We usually run at least a couple of hours. If you're already a redpillreligion.com member, ping us. We try and get the room to have a maximum of 5 in it. But if y'all want to come in and talk, let us know. This is an informal hangout. Again, please find our new Red Pill Religion channel where a lot of our more professional content is going up. Today, and talk about issues of the day, philosophical issues, or whatever. Had a review on the Red Pill Religion channel earlier. Let me bring this up just so people can see it. We just had an interview with David. I can't remember his name now. Guy who runs Catholic Versus. David Ross of Catholic Versus. So everybody go over to the new Red Pill Religion channel and subscribe and like and stuff like that. But in any case, that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. We're going to kind of start here. I like to link Tim Pool videos because Tim Pool is still a moderate lefty and tends to be very honest. The Covington Catholic High School kids wearing the MAGA hats and the confrontation with the American Indian, Native American, whatever phrasing you like. The story, to my surprise, has gone viral in the other way, because it was clear to me watching it that those kids were targeted, especially that one kid. And I didn't think the media was going to change its story, but a lot of people have been. I don't know. You guys aren't Catholic or anything, but what did you think of what you saw was going on there at Covington? All right, you
Yes.
crazy anarchist, you were pissed?
Very. I mean, it's one thing. Really, the interaction between the kid, the stupid, racist, homophobic black Hebrews, and the Native American dude really wasn't that much at all. It was just some BS fronting from the Native American, the black Hebrews, but that's all it was. That's all it was. It was just them fronting at each other to a kid. I mean, cognition kid. The kid can take responsibility for himself. Kid didn't really do anything. The kid was just like, what is going on? And he was just confused. We saw earlier video of him trying to calm down with some other protesters. Just trying to say, hey, let's be friends here. Let's be friends here, or something along those lines. Another one was getting heated with some other kids, and he was trying to calm everyone down. This kid was trying to make the peace, and this guy just gets in his face and Ingram. Okay, that's just some political stuff. Yeah, it was after the event, but still political, right? Oh well. But then, this is where it gets bad. First off, this stupid man gets on TV and starts saying that the kid was harassing him and blocking him. They're threatening him, and let's build the wall, and da. Right? First off, that is what's wrong. That is wrong. But no, it gets worse. The kid actually had death threats to the point where people on Twitter, blue check marks, were calling for him to be punched, his school to be set afire, his family hurt, him shot. Someone's calling for someone to shoot this kid. I saw on Facebook some kids calling these kids fascists, and I'm like, no one was being fascist. No one. It was just a little standoff, and that's all it was. And what legitimately pisses me off is death threats and threats of harm against the church, against the school, against the family. Over what? A lie. And that's what has me very up in arms about this. That anyone would be threatened over something so stupid. Anyone would lie about something so stupid. I don't like Trump. And here's the thing, I don't like Trump. Probably some people are going to say I like Trump. No, I'm an anarchist. I would not mind seeing the Capitol building burn, personally. I don't want government. I don't want rulers. I don't want Trump in office.
The rules of luxury. Wait a minute, what did you say you would like to see burned?
DC, I wouldn't mind seeing that being razed to the ground.
DCFs?
D.C.,
Oh, DC. Sorry. Oh, okay. Right.
Washington.
You're an anarchist, right? You're an anarchist. You're not even a Christian. And yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying. I'm just fascinated by the way the story won't die either. I hear that this Nathan Phillips guy is being like, I want to talk to these kids. What do you want to talk to them for? He's like a sophomore in high school who just stood there, and they did. What was so sick, I know Tim Pool did this video on it, and on Twitter and elsewhere, they've gone nuts, accusing the students at this Catholic high school of using blackface, when that's not what it is. It's clown masks. It's a clown outfit. They're accusing them, the whole high school, the whole thing, and there's people posting stuff still about how this kid needs to be beaten up. There's even people who've posted, saying, please go kick his ass. There was at least one country artist, believe it or not, said he'd kick, if people in.
Oh, Garth Brooks.
It
Was that
wasn't.
Garth Brooks? That was a character. That was a little bit different. That was his character saying that.
It wasn't. Well, it must be it wasn't Garth Brooks. Wasn't the name.
No, it's not Garth Brooks. It's Will Walker Jr., the guy who released most of his albums on Pornhub.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's.
The guy is funny, but that was just not that time.
Our friend Same, the Jew. Hi, Jew. No, I'm just kidding. Our friend Same says the kid is neutral in my opinion, but the First Nations fellow is a snake. First Nations, yeah. The Nathan Phillips guy. I agree that he's a snake. I don't. I think we can be more than neutral on the kid. He literally did nothing wrong, and he actually, if you watch that tape, he stood there, in a way that I mean, I would have been so tempted to punch the guy or run, or both. He just kind of stood his ground and refused to be provoked, and so I mean, I think he did, because really, I would have had to restrain myself from punching him, even though he's an old man and smaller than me. I would have been like, "What do push him away anyway? Get the out of my face." That would have been my initial reaction, and of course, had he done that, Nathan there probably would have fallen over backwards and landed on the ground and screamed that he broke his knee and that he was assaulted, and had the kid run, he might have faced chase, because he had all these people behind him. What scares me about all this is that what scares me about all this is that there's still people not backing down. They just want to hurt this kid and his family and everybody associated with him. Which is like, holy cow, what is that all about? What are your thoughts on all this? And Mr. Eric, you're being very quiet.
Yeah, okay, so I've got two things to say. First, insofar as the black Hebrew Israelites are concerned, if there is a hell, I do hope they go to it, and I hope they burn forever. Number two, notice, right, how there is a massive media frenzy. And we were just talking about this before we went live. There was a massive media frenzy about this Native American guy and this so-called confrontation between the two, with the teenage Catholic boy there, and that's all over the place. That's being plastered all over the place. But notice how at Standing Rock, when there were a bunch of Native Americans being harassed by the police, beaten by them, having water hoses turned on them, being shot at with like rubber bullets, and I heard accounts of even actually real bullets too. And there was no media attention about that whatsoever in the mainstream. It just goes to show that the CIA and corporate-owned media in this country will only put you out there and promote a story involving whoever, as long as it fits their narrative, as long as it pushes their bullshit, right? Like that's what I got from this.
I have to say I agree. I mean, I've seen so many things. I've done activist work, I've done protest work, I've done organizing work, I've done investigative journalism work, I've even done undercover work. I've done all kinds of stuff. in and around politics and powerful people. And yeah, nothing gets in the media anymore, not in the mainstream media, unless there's a planned narrative. They planned this encounter. I don't believe for a second, I don't necessarily at all believe that they picked this kid out, but they were looking for kids, they were looking for something like this. They were absolutely looking for a target like this. And by the way, given that in progressive circles we know they have this thing called Catholic Spring and a particular, which has been a real thing for a few years, where they really want to reform Catholics one way or whether Catholics like it or not. And I'm positive that they were targeted because they're from a Catholic high school. Good. That was part of it. A lot of Republicans and others are seeing this because of the MAGA hat, but it was because they were at a Catholic high school. And you know that that's true too, because the narrative was up within 24 hours, and it was all identifying them as Catholic, talking about the high school or the school, talking about where they're from, Covington, Covington, Covington. See how they mentioned it over and over and over again. And it was almost like people in the school were. By the way, the school administrators, what a bunch of cowards in the archdiocese down there. They threw these kids under the bus without even knowing what was happening. I think the whole thing was staged. I don't know that they picked out the one kid or not, but yeah, they wanted a confrontation like this, and they created it, and they put it on the front pages.
Well, think about it, right? Didn't that whole scenario just look like the perfect recipe for disaster? Like, it looked so planned. If it was, not saying it is or it isn't, but if it was, all the ideal ingredients were there, right? You had pretty much 3 different races going at it, confronting each other, and you had the mainstream media going wild over it, even though, and they're still trying to promote it, by the way, even though there's numerous full-length videos out now, like, of the entire situation, so people can go and watch it for themselves and see what really happened. And despite this, though, they're still pushing this, and I think the motivation is very clear. They really, really do want a race war to break out. They really do.
Hey, look, it's Mr. Brass.
Hello there.
I told you could get on.
I just told you. I just brought you on to tell you I hate you. You sick bastard.
All right.
I love you,
Are you
Mr. Brass. You're one of my favorites. What's up? What's your thoughts on this Covington thing? Go ahead, make your
I think
stupid
it's just
Catholic
stupid.
joke. Go ahead, make your stupid Catholic joke.
I just think it's stupid. Oh, I just think this whole situation is stupid. Like, I don't even trust the media anymore with this stuff.
Well, because you can't, can you? They lie constantly about everything. I've seen that I've seen that with my own eyes. I've been lied about in the media more than once, and so I can spot what it looks like when it happens. I actually think that Tim Pool has it right too. I've been saying it a while, but it's like we are moving towards civil war with this kind of behavior. It's like that's what they want to happen.
Yeah, they do, actually, so that the state can come in and call order, quote unquote, out of chaos.
Yes.
Because that's where they will implement martial law, right? Because look, these civilians, they're so unstable and violent and aggressive and everything. It's chaos, even though they're the ones who caused it. They're the ones who caused it. They're the ones who splintered the nation and divided the people. And then they're going to come in, and they're going to, and that's how they're going to put people in camps, insofar as I can tell. Maybe I sound crazy saying that, but, I mean, am I really?
Yeah, now Mr. Brass keeps dropping off. I wonder why he keeps changing rooms. I'm going to ask him, why you keep changing... Here, I'm going to message Mr. Brass. Mr. Brass, why do you keep leaving the room? Here, I'm going to move him again.
Hey, Max.
What?
Hey, Max, can I show myself real quick?
Sure, please do.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're on the Discord, I just put out my newest article. Yes, it pertains to anarchism as usual. Well, please, Take a look at it if you want to. Send me critiques. Hit me up on Discord. Hit me up on the website. I'd love to chat with you about it.
Okay,
Okay, show's over.
No. You like making articles. Uncle Anarchist likes to talk about what we learned from the shutdown. We put the link in the live stream. Mr. Brass, why do you keep changing out of our channel? Are you having trouble?
I don't know. It just keeps doing that for some reason.
Really? Totally not doing it to you on purpose, I promise. I'll see if I can. You want to know what
Alright.
He's totally doing it to you on purpose, Derek.
Yeah.
It's because he hates me.
He's not doing anything to me.
It's not the hate so much as a raging, seething, fiery desire to see you completely annihilated as a human being. No, I'm totally teasing you, man. I'm not. Anyway, I see John Baptiste has joined us. Good evening, John Baptiste. John Baptiste? Well, he's joined us, but he's silent.
Well, give me a moment. I'm dealing with a barking dog.
Okay, who is making the echo?
It's you.
No, I don't think it is. It's probably you. Tim Pool is using the dread word civil war, and I don't think it's too hard. I think our elites have been gunning us up for just that for some time now. I mean, people are fighting in the streets, and nobody cares anymore what's real or what's true. Like, the people who've decided they hate this Covington kid just hate him, and they don't care. It's like the whole country's falling apart. Everybody hates each other. All right, I need to know who's freaking. I'm gonna mute some people to see who that echo is coming from.
It's Brass.
Is it? Well, maybe you've got some. Yeah, it is Brass. So maybe Brass, you've got some kind of technical thing. Adjust your mic and maybe unmute yourself.
Yeah, he can just like mute when he's not talking. Probably that would work.
Yeah, mute yourself when you're not. We'll try one more time. Mute yourself when you're not talking, Brass, and let's see how that works. I think you might have a virus or something on your computer. Well, you know what? Speaking, I'm gonna pull up a video. Screw it, I'll just search it up on YouTube. We're just talking here. This is the bull session, everybody. People can join up to 5 if you want to. We especially encourage patrons too. True Stream Media is probably one of my very favorite. It may even be my very favorite alternative media outlet. And they were in Paris 3 weeks ago. And if you see, they have this video. I'll put it in the Discord chat called "What's Really Going Down."
I'd run for mayor of my hometown.
I'd finally own my own wellness studio.
I protect these.
Max, you just violated the NAP.
Okay, Max, prepare for your tactical miniature mega news.
What did I
the sides of the Empire State Building. You hurt my ears.
Did you just hear that? Did you hear all that noise?
Yes.
Are you able to do this?
Not anymore.
Bring him to the chair.
But this was just 3 years ago. Live footage, that they took in Paris and them talking over it and showing what's on TV. And one of the things.
Wait, that's 3 years ago?
3 weeks ago.
My bad.
Dead. They were in Paris and they put this up. And what was happening while they were there, you've heard about the yellow vests. I mean, they look a little more than green, but yeah, greenish yellow vests. You've all heard about the yellow vest uprising, right?
Yes, Max, writer John Buck is in casual waiting for us.
Is he? Well, we can bring him over.
And Mr. Brass got kicked again.
I have no idea what's going on with Brass. I think he must be his computer must be demonically possessed.
Brass, I cursed your computer.
Mark yourself as mute yourself. And let's see, Neffle's here, so we'll.
Hey, what up, man?
Hey, Neffle, good to see you.
Oh no, it's Neffle.
Another filthy occultist.
And right,
got back from work about.
There's only two.
Got back from my third way of my third day on the job, going door to door.
Ouch, that's
my feet are killing me.
I've never heard of door-to-door human sacrifice, but you know what, man?
Yeah.
I support you completely in your endeavors.
I'm down.
Basically just selling just bullshit clean energy. Yeah, nothing serious. I get paid by the hour, so I don't care about the commissions.
We've also been joined by writer John Buck. Can you hear us, or can you speak?
Yeah. Hi, guys.
Yo.
Hi, writer John Buck.
I've interacted with a few of you guys on Twitter, and I've been hanging out with Craig Reed, which I know you guys know. So.
Craig Reed. I'm trying to remember that name. Do we like him or do we dislike him? I can't remember.
We like him.
Yeah.
Okay, we like Craig Reed. I was about to say screw Craig Reed, but I'm still no. He's not even. Yeah. He's not even coming to my memory. I think I interviewed him once. Is he an atheist?
He's a theist. He's been lately doing a lot of conversations with different atheists on his channel. Just so as to get a better conversation brewing between the two sides, which I don't know.
I gotcha. Okay.
Hi guys. So the subject's the Covington boys.
Well, we started on Covington, but we've kind of moved on to generally how media is controlled. And I was pointing out this TruthStream media video, which I also posted in the Red Privilege and Stream on Discord. Anybody listening can join us on there, at least if they want.
And
it's an interesting video. Okay, can I finish? If you look at the What's Really Going Down in Paris video, it's more than 30 minutes long, or it's about, just a little over. A lot of live footage from only about 3 weeks ago about these Yellow Vest protests. These Yellow Vest protests are breaking out all over the world, actually. They started in France, and then now they've been making their way to Canada and Taiwan, and I think we've seen even parts of the U.S. and other countries. And the thing is, people... that is not entirely spontaneous. Somebody's making that happen. And, it doesn't go global that fast over such simple things. And if you look at this TruthStream media video, they show how basically people in yellow vests are mostly milling around not doing much. And then you'll see groups of them go and do something criminal or questionable, like go torch a car. And the cops will just watch them and will do nothing until maybe they've got a pile of 5 or 6 cars all burning at once.
What the hell?
And wait for basically a certain spectacle to occur. Then the press and the cops all rush in. Like they're showing this right now, in other words, to say, look, the Yellow Vests are getting out of control. When actually, in many cases, they're just kind of being ignored until they're provoked into doing something. And then they get up on the news. And what the TruthStream media people said is very similar to what you just said, Eric. It's like they wanted to seem good, and then they wanted to seem out of control, and then they're going to arrest everybody and implement new measures again. That would be the paranoid way of looking at it. But being a paranoid myself, I suspect that that's what's going to happen, and we're going to hear in a couple of years, that yellow vest thing. Yeah, go ahead.
We have seen this happen before back in the hippie movement with the FBI. Funny enough, if anyone knows me, I actually speak out against Antifa when I get on the subject. But there's one thing I will point. There is one thing that I do agree with a few members I know. There's the ones I know that are more on the peaceful spectrum of the Antifa movement. Those are the ones that I actually respect and willing to sit down with. And they explain one thing to me. They think a lot of the violence is actually part of it is controlled by the media, which I honestly wouldn't put it past it. Just like what's happening with the Yellow Vests. The media only hops in when it starts to get violent for some reason.
I see. What I see happening here is what I think is what happened to Occupy Wall Street, which had some legitimate stuff but was being controlled by people. And I also think, it shocks people, but I think the same thing happened to what was called the Tea Party movement. If you looked
Yeah.
at the Tea Party movement and you looked at Occupy Wall Street, it was shocking that you could actually on the issues find something like 70 to 80% convergence with each other, but they were set up to antagonize each other. And I think that was done on purpose. And I think that is similar what's going to happen with Antifa and this yellow vest thing, because there's already films showing some of the yellow vests are by no means conservative. Some of them are hardcore socialists. They're only, and some of them are not. Some of them are conservatives. They're united against the current order, but tear down the current order, and it's still going to be, well, these people aren't going to be friends in a year. I suspect a lot of yellow vest wearers now in 5 years will be like, man, either regretting it or just kind of being jaded and saying, yeah, we were used. I don't know. Somebody else talk. What do you think, John Baptiste? We haven't heard from you tonight. What do you think of all this stuff going on?
Right now I'm pretty much tagging it with Andrew Stratalities on this atheist about basically saying that that Christianity forces you to apologize and dismiss genocide like an authoritarian. But basically, this guy Anson on Twitter basically says because genocide is wrong. Andrew started, if there's no God, why is genocide wrong? And his answer was because genocide is wrong. Well, if one does not believe in God, why would someone follow the same laws as God? That's the question right there. That they still think they can cling on to the same morals that they've been given. But instead, it was Christianity that brought those morals.
Hey, listen, guys.
Come on, Neffel. Don't you want to go on the atheist roundabout trip?
Hey, listen, I'm going to go. I'm going to take a break, guys. I'm going to be gone about 10, 15 minutes. You guys just keep talking about whatever. I'll be back.
All right.
Cool. All right. Anarchy in the chat. Let's take this motherfucker over.
Yeah, let's go take it over. I got the shotgun. Let's do a Red Revolution.
I have the potatoes.
Set them on fire. Set them on fire.
No, listen. My people have already experienced enough potato famines, damn it.
Oh, damn. Potato Blight is a killer.
Hey, fuck you for that joke before we went on air, Derek.
So, guys, you loved it. Come on, let's do this 1v1 like Donga and Warzone.
Don't listen. If anyone's don't listen to this guy. He's your typical Ginzo. Okay, just don't.
Hey, don't listen to this guy. He's an anarchist.
So are you. All right. Let's.
Jesus.
So let's see. What should we talk about? Because we pretty much hijacked the stream. So
I know. Why Yowie is superior?
No, damn it. Listen, everyone knows Yowie is not superior to... Fuck, I'm drawing a blank. It's the other one.
What the hell, gentlemen? Neffel, I think you know this round, don't you? 9?
Yeah.
Are we in the 9th? I lose track.
Wait, how do you guys feel about furries?
Amazing.
Oh,
yeah, who's talking now? It's a new voice.
I just try to avoid them as much as I can. I don't know. It always just rubs me the wrong way. I just want to look away as much as possible.
Now, is that supposed to be a pun? Rubs you?
No.
Ooh woo. I didn't know the furries were as big as they were, man. They have an entire community, apparently.
I am surrounded by degenerates.
There's an online community, and... Wait, hold on. Outside of the internet, are these guys really that big?
I
Yeah.
think there was, furry cons that probably have, 1,000 people or something that go to them. Maybe.
Should be gassed.
I don't know if it's that much.
Who said they should be gassed?
I did.
My mentor is one.
No, we should... No, Neffel, what you do is you go to one of these cons and you hold up an evolution stone to them and see what happens. maybe they'll evolve into normal people. Who knows?
An evolution stone. Woo!
Wrong
But,
fandom. Wrong fandom. We're not that degenerate over here.
Yet.
What was that? I'm going to tell Max you creep me.
All right. Hey, John Baptiste, are you back yet?
Were
He
you
lit
bit
up.
by the dog?
Yeah, are you okay?
No, I'm all right.
Okay. We thought the dogs ate you, honestly.
Woo!
So, John, you're a vet, right?
Right.
So this native guy apparently he's a vet as well, but I guess he's a known liar, so I don't know if that's true or not. What are your thoughts on him and his actions and all of this?
Sorry, dude. I've been.
Well, it's we're not a monolith, really. We all serve our country for different reasons. Vietnam was a little bit weird because everybody had to serve. It was a draft. It was a draft conflict, but with what he did, it's the world's gone crazy and filled with these crazy people that just want to race bait and stuff. Because now, after everything has come out and all the information came out, the 2 hour live stream of these kids that these kids did, showing what the Hebrew Israelites were doing and what their reactions to it were. And my whole reaction to this was like, listen to the kid. You know, the Hebrew Israelites were saying really homophobic things, and the Catholic kids from Catholic high school were going, but they're humans too, right? And they're actually defending the gay people, the homosexual people from these people, and it's like, you know, you're going to side with the part of the like, everybody was confused according to them because they're arguing with the Hebrew Israelites, and then the Native Americans came over, and already we have the one of the biggest right wing protest. I guess it's a rally. You know, the March for Life was there. You had some indigenous thing was there, and of course all the different people come there for their different reasons.
I always thought March for Life was later.
Did you how many of you guys watched the full like live stream, or at least like parts of it? I seen parts of it, and like it's so funny, right? Because they want to paint these Catholic schoolboys as like the face of white supremacy, of racism and homophobia and bigotry. Even though, if you watch the full version of the live stream, you have the Black Hebrew Israelites standing in front of them, screaming at them that they are future school shooters.
Oh, wow. The Black Hebrew Israelites.
They were also the one black kid that was in their school. They're picking on him too, and these kids were defending their friend. They're like, this guy is our friend. This guy is one of us. Stop it. And they're just saying really racist things. If they were white, they would have, the Black Hebrew Israelites would have been called the white supremacists.
If I remember correctly, I also heard that they're calling the natives devils.
Ooh.
They're being racist to the people that.
This is why. I don't know what to say. Right? It's like
free helicopter rides. Am I right?
Yeah. Wow, Black Hebrew Israelites. They must get a whole other level of stuff. I don't know what they've been smoking.
Hey, I'll happily take
goddamn.
Clearly not any of that burning bush, my friend.
Well, there's...
No. They need to read. They obviously they really need to brush up on their history books.
Well, there's quite a few there's quite a few YouTubers that aren't subbed to as much as they should be, that actually cover what these people do. Like Donut Operator covers how these people interact with police, and it's just what they do. By what they do, it's like if these people were white, it would be all over for them. The things they say is just abhorrent.
Yeah, they're a legitimate. They're like a cult, right? Like they're a legit cult. They're a hate movement. If anyone is a hate movement, it's them. If anyone is a racial, if any group is a racial supremacy, whatever, it's definitely them.
Oh yeah, big time.
I mean, I would advocate to peruse. Like you could read, you could read their literature without believing it, and make that decision for yourself after you've done that. But that's mainly because the SPLC has called them a hate group, but the SPLC has also called people, groups, hate groups that aren't hate groups. So you like the things that I've seen from YouTubers, on the whole YouTube, like if you just search Black Hebrew Israelites and YouTube and just start watching videos after you search that, you'll come across some, a full range of what these people do. And, in action, the actions they're making, yes, they're a hate group, but we'd have to actually look at what their belief system is, what they actually believe, before you can actually argue with them.
What I know of the Black Hebrew Israelites is by their that they consider themselves they're a race nationalist group, pretty much. They say, basically the original Jews were all black, and black people of the right descent are the true Jews. I've had people try to say that these people are Christian, but they're not. I mean, the actual practitioners
are calling them Christian.
Huh?
The news is calling them Christian.
They're not. Yeah. I don't think they are. They might.
No, they're an anti-Christian group.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, there are some of these groups that also zoom around and claim to be Christian, but these people, no, they're. One hesitates to call them Jewish because the practitioners of Judaism don't recognize them. They just look like a weird cult to them. That's because that's what they are. I mean, they think white people are basically devils, and that they're the true practitioners of the true Jewish faith. And that gets it weird too, because there actually are some black Jews that the state of Israel and that Orthodox Jews recognize as real. I know, because I had a friend whose dad was a Orthodox rabbi, and they said, no, these people exist. They were able to show, they were found in like Ethiopia or whatever, and they were able to show like continuous practice going back more than a couple of thousand years, and like they were Jews who had been separated during the Babylonian captivity, or, well, I mean, they were black people, but they were maintaining the Jewish scriptures and a lot of the Jewish practices. So, like, the Israelis consider them real Jews, but that's not these guys, as far as I know. This is just kind of a more American thing. But yeah, they call it Black Judaism, and it's they are the true God's chosen people, the Black Israelites. That's how they see themselves. So yeah, they are a nutty group, actually. And they are basically, if they were white, they would be called white supremacists. But they're black, and so we can't call them black supremacists, but it's kind of what they are. So there.
They're basically the Jewish we was kings.
Huh?
Yeah.
I
They're
didn't
like
hear
the
what you
black
said.
Zionist Jews.
Black Zionist Jews?
Oh, we got into that territory.
Oh
great.
no! Don't get me started, man.
Zionism is funny. I used to sometimes call myself a Zionist, but I didn't exactly know what I was saying, because I mostly was like, I thought Israel had a right to exist, and some of the propaganda against them, not a lot of the propaganda coming out of the Palestinian side, that's not all true either. I mean, we know the Israelis, of course, lie about things and do bad things, but so do the Palestinians, and it's always a question of
it's
what
like
you believe.
it's like two spoiled siblings fighting over a teddy bear.
It's not an easily solved issue, but no, Zionism is real specific, and it is ultimately a Jewish supremacist movement.
You mean Jewish ethno-nationalists?
And not all religious Jews are down with it, by the way, by any means.
I know.
Well, don't the Orthodox Jews denounce Zionism?
It really depends. I mean, certainly there's a certain ethnic race component to Zionism that basically it's complicated, and there are some who are very against it, some who are for it, but they want Israel to be a religious state, whereas the secular Zionists are very opposed to it and are actually kind of atheistic and don't like the ancestral religion. That's one of the problems for Israel. That's one of the problems for Israel.
You don't got to distinguish between a Jew and an atheist. Come on now. They're pretty much the same.
He's being joking, everybody. Don't get us stricken. He's being joking. I'll tell you what, atheist Jews are different from religious Jews. They just are. And the atheist Jews tend to hate the religious Jews. It's very noticeable.
I'm just glad some people got that joke.
We're going down.
Well, even within Zionism, there's it's like when you're saying a Zionist Jew, what are you meaning? Because even to the Jews, that's like this weird term that kind of has a definition but doesn't, has a whole bunch of different ideologies behind it, and it's just I personally would something that I stay out of, because that seems to be more of the religious Judaism's internal dialogues that they're having.
Yeah, not something really easily solved.
One of my friends, he was a Messianic Jew, some Jewish ancestry, etc., etc. He used to be a hardcore Zionist, but then when he went from Christianity to Messianic Judaism, yes, he still reads if you call them the same. He went from, as a Christian, as a hardcore neocon Zionist, to a very staunch, outright anti-Zionist for religious reasons. And also outside the fact that there is a lot of ethno-nats in it. But he was one of the Jews that I've known personally who believes Zionism to be wrong. Yeah.
Well, they're split on the issue that, like, most of them are anti-Zionist. Well, not anti-Zionist, but not Zionist. Yeah, it's there's difference between wanting your people to have, the city they believe was given to them by God, and what the Zionists actually want, because the Zionists, like actual Zionism, what was created in the early 20th century, was very ethno-nationalist, and it was a response to Nazi Germany, because those German Jews thought along those same lines, whether it was because of what happened to them or because that's just how culture was. I'm not really sure.
We still see it today. I mean, I've seen some very graphic videos. The more extreme. This is no Zionist, by the way, everybody listening. Now, this is I forget what they're called, but they're the most extreme of the extreme. The type who kidnap Palestinians and shoot them before a mass grave. They're not that common, but when they strike, it's basically Hamas level terrible. But those I've heard are more or less kind of more extreme. I don't know. It's just complicated.
It is complicated. But when we're talking about politics, especially within like old religious organizations, there's these fine things that you really wouldn't get unless you're an actual practitioner or a parishioner. Like a lot of the Catholic dialogues that I watch between Catholics on YouTube, I don't really understand some of it because I'm not a Catholic.
Well, why aren't you?
Wait a minute, go ahead and ask me the question again. Ask me the question. Maybe I can answer it. What's the Catholic question?
No, I was more like putting in. There's the whole Pope Francis thing that's going on Catholic YouTube.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, well, let's just say Francis is having a very controversial and troubled papacy. And the only thing
I wonder why.
The only thing I will say to people wondering there is that Catholics are very divided over the guy too, and Catholics do not just worship the Pope and do whatever he says, guys. That's not how it actually works.
No, because that's not how it works. Because the Pope is just a spokesperson. He's just the head of the Catholic Church. He's not. He's just a spokesman. He's a representative between man and divine. He's not the divine itself.
He is. Yes. He theoretically has the power to speak infallibly, but in practical terms, he has to invoke that in so many specific ways. For the most part, he doesn't speak infallibly, and they put their feet.
Obviously, he doesn't. I mean, his whole role is basically making sure the Catholic traditions are kept.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the other thing I point out to people all the time is that you can't believe the media. We already know you can't believe the media. So why do you believe what the media is reporting on the Pope? Good or bad? Why do you believe any of it? Also, we know that historically popes have been lied about. Popes have been blackmailed. Popes have been forced to do things they didn't want to do. Popes have faced choices from governments like do what we say or we're going to kill these 50,000 people over here. Stuff like that happens to popes. So even for people who hate Pope Francis, I always point out you don't really know what's going on. And so, most Catholics would take the sensible position. We just keep going to church and worshiping and praying and hope it works out because in the end, his papacy will end one way or the other, But yeah, it's a mistake to think it's a mistake to think Catholics just slavishly follow the guy.
Hey guys, I gotta head off to bed. Sorry, but this is fun. You guys have a good stream. I'll probably try and connect back with you guys in later streams or something like that.
We're going to be here pretty much every night around this time. Just for open streams like this. Have a good night.
All right. See ya.
Take care.
So I don't know how we got derailed off on that, but yeah, Francis is controversial. And the only thing I just remember is just to repeat it. Nobody knows what's really going on. Media lies about everything. Even the direct things he says, you don't know if he's being taken out of context or if he's forced to do things he don't want to do. Or maybe he just really is that vile. Well, guess what? We've had horrible popes before.
Yeah.
We really have. That doesn't mean you get rid of the church. So that's. And I would point out, by the way, I gotta say right here, John Baptiste too. Jay Dyer is a real dick. Do you know who that is, Jay Dyer?
Nope.
Yeah, he debated RCA, I think, last month or so.
I'm not a fan. I'm fair. I don't know a lot of his work. I just know things related to RCA. But even within that RCA conversation, he was very much a dick.
Jay Dyer, yeah, really? Well, yeah, and the thing that got me is he's Eastern Orthodox Christian, and he's very critical of the Catholic Church, and I'm like, a lot of it is like, I'm like, fair enough, but he's really obsessed with it to the point of you know how there's a certain subset of Catholics who are just uh, looking for a fight, especially around EOs, all the time. He seems to be one of those EOs that's the other way, and he just can't say anything good about Rome at all. He can't say anything good about Catholics at all. I tried confronting him. I said at some point, because his fans are really pretty virulent and not very sympathetic. And I noticed recently that there's all these politics within the Orthodox Church. I don't try and pick on them, but I mean, there's some wacky stuff going on in Orthodoxy, Moscow and Constantinople both. And I'm like, I asked him, is there a point where you think this constant bashing and negativity that you notice that there's a rise in violence towards Catholics and people being persecuted within this country and beat up, and even people busting into churches and beating up priests who aren't even doing anything wrong? And he just called me self-righteous. And he would not even say, yeah, you know what, we should remind people. What I would expect a Saint Christian to say is, we should remind everybody now and then that as Christians, we're totally opposed to, we support and pray for them and don't want Catholics beaten up. He couldn't do that. And I was shocked. I just unfriended him. He couldn't just say, we should remind each other once in a while we're brothers in Christ or anything. I mean, he seems to really just think we're the... But you know what? That's religion, right?
Well, it's within all groups. Like right now, it's not really the religion. It's there's this divisiveness within everything, and I truly think it's these entries coming in and injecting poor ideas. But you also have within Eastern Orthodoxy, especially within America, a lot of Protestants are carrying that Protestant, the whole Protestant rhetoric of the anti-Catholic rhetoric.
Hello.
Within the Eastern Orthodox as well, within the American Eastern Orthodox, and that seems to be a problem because you have the elders are all going no, because the official stance of both the American patriarch and in Greece, all the patriarchs, they all agree that we should be trying to work towards unity with, try to get as close to the non-schismatic church as we can get to. That is the official church doctrine on that.
That we should be working. The official church doctrine is that we should be working towards greater closeness.
Yes. Trying to come to compromise, trying to actually coexist with one another.
Right.
And but this type of hatred towards Catholicism has been generational, and there's groups of Catholics and groups of Protestants that are always at each other. There's groups of Protestants and Jews always at each other. It's just this whole entire, like, the sickness of secular culture, I think, is really affecting the religious culture a lot.
I guess that's part of it. Plus, people pay politics. I mean, there are some people who definitely do not. There are some people who definitely do not ever want to see Rome and Constantinople getting closer, for pure, not just theological reasons, but purely political reasons, and they'll fund causes to cause trouble. And I know right now Moscow I don't know if people.
I gotta go.
Oh, God bless you. You
Bye, guys.
fag.
Pleasure hanging out with y'all.
Love you.
Hey,
Good night.
everybody watching the show, check out my stuff.
Yep. Check out
Or else.
Uncle Anarchist and his blog. Have a
It's
good
on
day.
WordPress. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all. Uncle Anarchism on WordPress. Go look him up, especially if you're interested in anarchy. Yeah, I mean, theologically, it's so important to me as a Christian. I became Catholic studying Orthodoxy, and it wasn't even Eastern Orthodoxy that convinced me, as I've said many times. It was not Eastern Orthodoxy. It was the Assyrians and the Oriental Orthodox, like the Coptics in them. Because while I could see the differences, the unity in practice and how different things weren't just made it obvious to me that these were four branches of brothers that had misunderstood each other somewhere. And that's still kind of how I see it. And I actually think that's the correct stance of Vatican II. I think with Vatican II, some people have gone way overboard with some things. But no, trying to get as close as possible with the other Orthodox, that includes the non-Chalcedonians. In fact, Rome has recognized everybody's orders is valid and everybody's sacraments is valid. So, you know, that's what we should be working toward. And there's some people politically don't want that to happen. What I'd actually like your opinion on, if you have one, John Baptiste, what is your opinion of the fact that the Moscow Patriarchate under Kirill there has basically declared Constantinople defunct and that Moscow is the new Rome and that they should be the center of the Eastern Orthodox Communion? You heard about that, right?
I think that kind of goes against the whole idea of how the Eastern Orthodox is supposed to work. Because all the patriarchs are supposed to talk to one another. They're not, you know, there's not one that is supposed to be that. That might be some, you know, Russian political stuff regarding Putin, because there's some things that Putin has said that has made the claim that he wants to rebuild the USSR, you know, not impossible and, you know, in a very plausible type of thing in my opinion.
I mean, well, it seems like this would be a schism-inducing issue.
Right. And we're like, there's a lot of different schism-inducing issues going on right now. And I really think that a lot of that has to do with what's going on outside of the churches. That's now starting to affect our cohesions. And it's just, I don't know. It's a shame, but I don't know what we can do.
The weird thing is that it may not, the way the Eastern Orthodox work, if I could observe as something of an outsider, is that there's definite benefits to not having a centralized authority like a pope. There is. And there's drawbacks. There's big drawbacks. We see that every time we have a horrible pope. Within the Eastern Orthodoxy, they've managed to avoid a lot of the problems of horrible bad popes, but to me, at the expense of, like, no offense, but haven't managed to have an ecumenical council since the seventh one. Just because every time someone tries to have one, a fight breaks out, and it doesn't happen, and people refuse, and stuff like that. And you know, something like this, what Kirill's pulling, is it a schism-inducing issue? Because it's like nobody's been excommunicated. It's a pull of authority. But I mean, Constantinople would have to excommunicate them for that to be a schism-inducer, I would think.
Hey, Max, not to interrupt, but Smiling Liger is in casual. I think he wants to come in. I'm not sure.
Sure, I think he does. Thank you for letting me know. And Mr. Brass, I don't know what's up with him. But I mean... Right.
Well, Smiling Liger can probably tell it. Say more to this.
Who's echoing? Is that you, Liger? Yeah, Liger, you're going to have to adjust your mic or something. Mute yourself. You're causing a huge echo, man. Hear me now. Sorry, Liger. Ping us when you think you've got your sound issue resolved. We're not using Google Hangouts. Sorry, we're in here. So you just got to figure out how to make Discord work or suck it. So I'm sorry, what were we just talking about? Constantinople, Rome. Oh, yeah, all that. Yeah, you know the other weird thing coming out of Constantinople, Jean-Baptiste? I just thought I'd mention it. LGBTQ people are, like, getting in there, in and around and near Constantinople. I just saw a quote from one Greek Orthodox bishop, I think, saying, in order to be not like the people of not like the Moscow Christians, you know, and Kirill in his very controlling ways, we Eastern Orthodox should be more inclusive of the LGBTQ. And I'm like, wow, okay, so no, really, the same weirdness is going on over there. It's just we don't hear as much of it. I bet it's what bugs me, right? Like, but everybody's got their dirty laundry. But it's crazy how religion and politics, you cannot separate them. I do not know why Mr. Brass keeps bouncing out. He must be having some kind of technical issue. Nobody else is having that happen. Blah, bitty, blah, bitty, blah. Hey, Liger, let's see if you've got your... oh, it sounds like you're not echoing now. Are you there? Well, Liger's not echoing, but he's not making any noise either. That's all right. So what have you been doing lately on your channel, Neffel? Nothing. He probably walked away.
Oh, and then there was 3.
I like having this theory that between all the major branches of Orthodoxy, it is just a disagreement between brothers, and on the other time, between, you know, like our uncles are fighting, and brothers fight, and, you know, we'll all figure out where we were wrong in the end. But yeah, I don't know. I actually feel sad for Protestants who've like thrown out 2,000 years of church history and living tradition. They have lost so much.
Well, that has allowed a lot for a lot of what's going on in Protestant land. That a lot of that, the whole atheist feeding off of the evangelical Christians, which just, you know, feeds into itself, because whenever a lot of times whenever an atheist goes from atheist to Christian, they go back to where they came from. Sometimes that doesn't happen. It's all weird.
Yeah. No, ideological atheists do like exploiting the divisions. That's why I find doing it back to them is effective. And I mean, like, I'm in this Facebook group arguing sometimes, which I shouldn't be, but I am. Arguing is supposed to be a fight between Orthodox, Catholics, and Protestants, and the Orthodox and the Catholics, you know, almost always wind up on each other's side, because you've got these, oh my God, it just won't stop. Every day we're treated to stuff like, actually this one is still my favorite. Use of incense is an abomination to God. That came out of one guy. I'm like, really?
Well, I mean, we were talking about that like last week, right?
Yeah, but it still sticks as a great reference. Now we lost Neffel. Oh, sorry. Anyway.
Who was it in the Bible? It was in the Old Testament. I know that burnt incense to God.
God loves incense, actually.
Well, like, yeah, it depends on, like, it's the intent behind it, right? Like, that's what counts.
Yeah. Here's this is actually what is almost certainly a Protestant site, I think, but it looks pretty good because these look all really good to me. Here's a set of verses, but it's mostly Old Testament, but in Chronicles, in Exodus, in Numbers, and Deuteronomy, they burn incense for God all the time, and God is described as liking it. The Ark of the Covenant, the altar had its own incense altar on it. There's this wonderful
frankincense and myrrh.
Well, when you go to the New Testament, gold, frankincense, and myrrh were the gifts to the Christ child, and frankincense and myrrh are both incense. Which I don't know. I don't know why the baby Jesus didn't just stand up and point and have lightning strike them dead for offending him for bringing him the abomination of incense and frankincense and myrrh.
That would certainly make the Gospels more interesting.
It certainly would. Baby Jesus just gets up and starts wailing on people. The funny thing is, we're being a little sacrilegious, but if you get into the deep Christian theology, when the Logos incarnated, when God became human, he could have chosen any form he wanted at all. And he could have been like 100-foot tall Thor if he wanted to be, or walked around as Godzilla or whatever he wanted. He chose to take that humble, very, very humble path instead. There was actually a quote that I found and then I lost it. I'll see if I can find it again. There was a lovely quote in one of the Psalms, I think, or it might have been in Song of Solomon or whatever.
That's the one with all the sexual talk.
Yeah, and it was something like, "Let my love be like incense." Oh, here we go. Yeah, I love this one. Here, I found the article that even had the quote in it. From Psalm 141:2, "Let my prayer be counted as incense before thee, and the lifting up of my hands as an evening sacrifice." Let my prayer be counted as incense before thee, because God likes incense, actually. It's all over the Bible. It's also in Revelations. And the prayers of the saints are fragrant incense coming out of the bowls. God likes incense a lot. And this dork somehow decided, and there were people agreeing with him. And, every day there's someone coming along and say, idols, graven images, you're bowing before statues. This is an abomination. You're bowing before icons. This is an abomination. And they won't stop no matter how many times they get answers. Sometimes it's the same people. And they're just like robots because they get the same answer repeatedly, and it just bounces off. We got one guy in there, in fact, he goes by Suresh, I think. He's obviously like from somewhere in Asia because his English is a little broken and his avatar looks Asian, but man, just like every day, you people need to stop worshiping Mary. You people need to stop worshiping Mary. You need to stop bowing before idols and graven images. And we keep responding to him, and we keep giving him Bible verses, and we keep citing things, and he's like a robot. He's like an atheist. But I think
this is a free-form discussion, right?
Yeah, pretty much. You can change the subject. I'm just rambling.
No. I was because I wanted to ask a question, but I wasn't sure if we
no, what's your question?
Had to. This is one for, I guess, Christian theology. So, like, what's up with like the animal sacrifices, like in the Old Testament, all the way up until like the New Testament, where Jesus comes and he's like, "All right, New Covenant time. You don't have to do that anymore. I'm the sacrifice, and you can do away with that now. Like, I guess I'm asking, like, why, what was why were those sacrifices up until that point? Why were those required?
Why were they required in the first place? Now that's,
Yeah.
oh, wait a minute. Somebody's got me in the chat. Nice going, Max. What did I not, what was the nice going for? Oh, I love Tim Pool. Yeah, well, he does it well. All right, anyway, sorry, ADHD. The question is, why the animal sacrifice in the first place? Well, I mean, one thing I would observe about animal sacrifice or any form of ritual sacrifice, could be meat, could be vegetables, could be drink even, and certain other kinds, but it is observable that offering sacrifice is nearly universal human behavior. I mean, like, now why I don't, is another question, but it's one of the oddities of the human animal that a shocking percentage of the population just does it automatically. They just kind of develop their own pagan religion that does it, or they join another religion that does it, or they're raised in a religious tradition, but it's universal behavior in humans to make sacrifices to some kind of higher power. You'll even catch atheists kind of doing it. And once you catch it, it's funny how often you see people engaging in prayer and ritual sacrifice. Even one of my favorites, I don't know if people even remember this, but like gangster thugs, they have this ritual where if they, open up some liquor or whatever, they will open the liquor up and pour a little out on the ground and say, "For my dead homies," kind of thing, for my dead brothers from the gang or whatever, and just give that sacrifice of the liquor before drinking the rest of the bottle. It's just kind of innate in humans to do this. So take away the Old Testament and Christianity, and humans will still be doing this. The animal human does it. Now, take it into an Old Testament context, and let's presume that the Bible stories are true, because they are. Why did God put that need in us? Why did He put that need in us at all?
Yeah, because what I'm thinking is, like, if Jesus was ultimately going to be in a sense, the last sacrifice, and he would cover all people's sins, Jews and Gentiles alike. Why not just wait until he came, or just do it right away?
Yeah. Okay. There is more than one answer to this question, but I will give you the standard Catholic answer because it works for me. Some don't like the Catholic approach because they don't like that we kind of have this idea of a progressing narrative, but that's kind of how we see it. I guess I can't give you a coherent answer as to why we give sacrifice, except that we were built to love God, and showing Him in some manner in order to appease Him that we love Him was a mechanism they were given. Because that process of atoning for a sin and offering sacrifice, I would tell you, obviously has psychological rewards. Put it in purely materialist terms, modernist terms. The idea of saying, "I'm sorry, forgive me, here's this sacrifice." The human animal feels better after doing this quite frequently, feels healed by it. And so God would accept those gestures. But they clearly weren't enough. And I've really gotten a sense of this as I've been reading the entire Old Testament with my son, who's just turned 14. So the kid's going to really say he read the whole Bible with his dad. And it's the wrong way to read the Bible normally. Most people should not do it this way. You really shouldn't. But we decided we were just going to do it this way for now, for once. So we're reading it straight through. And while it's hard to read in the early goings, you really do get a sense of a narrative that starts to flow, which is that the Jews, and this is the weird thing about the Jewish religion. It really is. Even I think any Jews listening will not be offended at this observation. All their judges and all their kings were screw ups and awful much of the time. And unlike the literature you find on most other ancient kings and kingdoms and chiefdoms and warlords, usually their own historians try to make their guys look good. The Jews never try to make their guys look good. The Jews guys always look bad. Like literally, David was arguably their greatest king, and he was also did some really embarrassing, awful stuff. The Jews recorded why their kings suck. I don't know any other culture that did that. And you see this narrative because, I just said, David was arguably the greatest, and he screwed up all the time and offended God all the time. Solomon, who came after David, the Bible clearly states that he is the wisest man who ever lived. It's really clear that he was, for all time. So today, theoretically, Solomon is still the wisest man who ever lived, according to the scriptures. Nobody was ever wiser or knew more or understood better than Solomon. And then you read the tales of Solomon's rule and the chaos and his many screw ups, and I remember the first time I read that, I'm like, this book is stupid. Why are they saying the best man, the wisest man who ever lived, did all these dumb bad things? That doesn't make sense. This last time through, it dawned on me. He's the wisest man who ever lived. He was the wisest a human being could possibly be, and he was still a fuck up much of the time, which is a lesson in the limits of human reason. And what you see is this narrative develop over time where God is trying to develop a relationship with people, and people are trying to develop a relationship with him. But look at the story of Moses and all of his failings and screw-ups, and Aaron too. And then you go through the period where they don't have kings yet. They're just ruled by judges who are ruling in the tradition of Moses, right, with the Levite priests and all that. And you read through the tale of the judges, by the way. You could almost summarize the tale of the judges as this judge sucked, and this judge sucked, and this judge sucked, and this judge sucked. I'm exaggerating comedically, but not that much. And then the Jewish people, out of pridefulness or whatever, wanted a king, because all the other people in the other lands wanted a king. So God gives them a king, and a pretty good one, who really loved God, David, and God loved him back, and still David wasn't that great a lot of the time. And then when you get to the Christian perspective, what you start to see is developing is, no matter how people manage it, they couldn't. No matter what type of sacrifice they did, it wasn't enough. People kept screwing up. Even the guys closest to God, even guys who'd pretty much come face to face with God, kept screwing up. And so with the idea of Christ is that, and this is really how most of the Orthodox see it, we're still doing the sacrifice at the temple. This is completely different at the altar. This is completely different than most Protestant understandings. But this is all the Orthodox are like that. We believe we are reenacting the ritual sacrifice for the most part of the Old Testament on the altar. We believe we're doing that sacrifice ritual. The same one, with the same kind of incense and bells and all that, but Christianized. Except we don't have to give cereal and offerings and drink offerings and meat offerings and other types of offerings. We offer up the precious blood of the Lamb, the flesh of Jesus. We give God His only begotten Son as the perfect sacrifice. And we don't have to sacrifice any of that other stuff anymore. Now, certain Protestants read that as we don't have to give sacrifice anymore because Jesus did it that one time. But the way we see it is, no, we're still going about the Old Testament practice of we confess our sins and ask the Lord for forgiveness and make sacrifice. The sacrifice is the Eucharist. And so, you know, Protestants can say whatever they want, and modern Judaism practitioners can say whatever they want. That's how we see it. So, I mean, I guess it's filling a need within us. I mean, we know we have the need. And I really do think that it's ultimately rooted in the yearning for God, that need for sacrifice. It's built in. It's a mechanism God gave us to show us that we love Him. Maybe is how I put what sacrifice is. That's the mechanism God gave us to show love in some concrete way. That was a long answer, but it was pretty good, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, that was more insightful than I was expecting.
Ah, well, there you go. So yeah, and actually, that's the Catholics and the others who take the Eucharist real seriously. It really becomes, even I'm just going to psychologize it all, like really telling somebody all the shit you did wrong, and then going and bowing down and praying and getting on your knees and saying, I'm sorry, here's the sacrifice, and thank you for making the sacrifice for me, and doing that every week. Just the psychological benefits of that alone are incalculable. And of course, the spiritual value, if you believe in it, and I do, is infinite. So, oh God, I love being Catholic.
Well, you could take the psyche and the soul or spirit as, you know, being synonymous, right? So,
yeah, I got to tell you, one thing that the Eastern Orthodox got right, that the Romans you know, we Catholics are starting to adopt. It's always kind of been in there, but historically we've tended to view the sacraments as almost like just kind of a mechanical thing that you do. But it was the Easterners who've always emphasized the sacraments as medicine, as spiritual medicine, as the idea that the church is a hospital and we are all walking wounded from the ravages and damages of sin. And the sacraments of you know, penance, reconciliation, whatever you want to call it, group prayer together, the grand prayer that is the divine liturgy, where we're all praying together and we all ask forgiveness together out loud, together, and sing praises to the Holy Family, which we're all now a part of, because Jesus is our brother, and Mary is our mother, and God is our Father, and the love binds us all between us, and we are all united in one mystical body from Pentecost onward. We're all part of the same church. So, yeah, it's
you
deep.
mystical son of a bitch.
That's right. That's right. And that's what the Protestants threw all that out. Oh, you fools. Oh, you fools.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, so I know I jumped in pretty late here, and I just wanted to kind of interject some thoughts that I had relating to the incident with the kid at the you know, in the indigenous elder, and the Church of Israel, or whoever, what, I don't remember what the organization is called, the Israelite Church of God.
Black Hebrew Israelites.
Yeah, the Black Hebrew Israelites. Something, it's funny that happened, that news came out just as I was doing some research on black elk. I don't know Are you guys familiar with Black Elk at all? He's the Lakota elder. He died in like 1950, and he was a medicine man, and I think he was a second cousin of Crazy Horse. And he there's a book that that was published about him called
Well, what? Called what? We lost you? You know, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take that long explanation I got. I should remember in the morning and see if I can cut that out and just put that up as an explanation on sacrifice. I think that was a pretty good off-the-cuff sermon. I was preaching, wasn't I?
I got taken to church. Is what happened.
Sorry.
That's what happened.
Yeah, you know, I'm Catholic.
I thought I was around the down around the corner from my house where the Catholic church is. I thought I was there for a minute.
They don't talk like that in church often enough.
They don't talk like that in church, boy.
Tiger, we're not talking over you, but you just cut off, man. You were talking and then you're gone. Yell or something if you're trying to get back in, but otherwise.
Oh, here you go. Is that better?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. So yeah, there's a book that was published on Black Elk called Black Elk Speaks, and actually, what I want to bring up relates to sacrifice also, because the Lakota were very much about, and you know, I'm not saying I believe in, you know, the specific kind of paganism that they believe in, that indigenous cultures believe in, but there's some parallels, you know, and Black Elk and the Lakota believed in the whole seventh generation, the prophecies about the seventh generation, and his prophecies were the subject of the book Black Elk Speaks. That's what the book was called. And I was writing about the kind of parallels between those prophecies and other Christian mystic prophecies, and the whole idea of the seventh generation. And
I don't know what the seventh generation is.
The idea that, you know, basically everything that we do, we have to consider the impact that it's going to have in seven generations from now, you know, or on the seventh generation.
There's a theory that something's going to happen over seven generations. Black Elk Speaks said something would happen within 7 generations, and we're in the 7th generation now. Is that what it amounts to?
It ties in with that. It ties in with that philosophy. His specific prophecy was centered around the idea of these sacred hoops, and the idea that there's all these different hoops. That's what he called them. That made up the whole world, and that in 7 generations, the hoops would unite as one. So kind of interesting stuff there. And he, as I was doing my research, I discovered that the Catholic Church is considering giving him sainthood. There's a pastor in South Dakota who was commenting on it in the articles that I read about it.
Okay.
And this guy's a Lakota elder. He's very, very well respected among a lot of First Nations, indigenous people in the United States. And there's all these people who were apparently people who were part of the American Indian movement who have a great respect for him. And, the Catholic Church is thinking about giving him statehood. And so that's interesting that, CNN, is fueling divisive rhetoric, basically, and trying to incite division and conflict, maybe CNN, maybe, I don't know if that was their intention in publishing that video, but I'm gonna guess that. Because I'm going to guess that it was because they don't like Trump, but they're not going to report on how the Catholic Church is considering giving sainthood to Black Elk.
Well, I don't.
Do you see what I'm getting at with that?
Well, yeah, I do. I don't know if the story is true or not. To be honest, my antennae are going up because the church is not likely to do that unless he actually was Catholic, or at least.
Yeah, he converted. He converted to Catholicism.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Well, then there would be a very good chance. Then I take away my. Yeah, of course the church would consider making. I don't know anything about him, but of course the church would. We've got tons of Mexican, and I can't think of. I know we must have American Indian saints already. Actually, we almost have to. Well, no, because we don't have that many American saints. He would be considered one of the early ones. American Indian saints. One of my favorite saints was there she is.
Yeah, this is an article about Black Elk in the Catholic Church here.
It looks like to me he would maybe be the second. Although there may be others. This is the only one I could find, but I did find it on a quick search. Saint Kateri Tekakwitha. I hope I said that right. She is a saint. She was a Mohawk. No, her mother was Algonquin, who was captured by the Mohawks. Okay, so
he's the only other First Nations, the only other individual who's from a First Nations tribe who was given sainthood. So Black Elk would be the second.
And then go ahead.
And it's interesting because I was actually having a conversation about the wall and that I was listening to Ben Shapiro talk about how none of the land around there is actually being used, and the Lakota, it's specifically the Tonto Odoam people who that's the land there is their land. That's part of their nation, and it extends into Mexico. So conflict over the wall being built there in that specific area has to deal with that because it would be going right through their sacred land.
Oh, gee whiz! And that was in there. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and there's but it's not really being used for anything. At the same time, as far as so there's a big hullabaloo obviously with Jewish people in Israel, and that's that the state of Israel is considered holy land and is considered they have a spiritual connection with Israel. We have a spiritual connection. I have a spiritual connection with Israel, in a sense.
Sure.
You know, and so it's pretty easy to understand how First Nations people like the Tonto Odoam. I don't know if the guy in that video that CNN aired was part of that tribe, but still, you know, they're all, you know, connected as far as having, you know, a similar kind of sense of that kind of, you know, the seeing land as sacred.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's kind of a general pattern with all religion.
Well, not all religions, but not all religions, especially not your more Gnostic-oriented ones. But you're basically correct that people seeing land and areas as sacred is very universal among human religions. It's the most glaring that most people don't know about is Japan, which the Shinto religion, to make it short of it, is that Japan, like the Earth was already here, and then some gods created Japan and drew it up out of the sea, and they see Japan itself as this special place made on the earth by these gods, and the people living there as being part of that heritage. And this is actually one of the reasons why they're very resistant to immigration, because it's just that kind of spiritual race nationalism is like really embedded in their culture. And the Japanese government embraces that very heavily, by the way. Japan's not that secular at all. I mean, like the prime minister and all that, no, they take the Shinto way seriously and they push it.
Yeah, not only do they think that the land was created and given to them by these gods, they also think that people who are of the Shinto religion, when they pass on, their spirits, and it depends on, you know, the type of person they were in that life, their spirits go on to become a sort of member of this collective of gods, and they inhabit the land. So, a little fun fact for you.
I can tell you that within Catholic tradition, what we specifically believe, at least out of the Thomist Western Catholic tradition, is that there are uncounted number of angels, right? Like trillions. Like there are so many angels. Like every human being has their own guardian angel, and a corresponding guardian devil that is dispatched by Satan. Yes, this is basic Catholic teaching. Everybody's got a guardian demon and a guardian angel. But moving on from there, then a family can have an angel. A city, town, area, or woods, or whatever areas may have their own angel and their own demon. Nations, countries do, and ethnic groups do. And these angels and these demons. So I mean, you're like if you're, you know, of a certain American tribal tribe, you'll have a guardian angel and a guardian demon for that tribe, kind of thing. We really believe things like this, and they exert an influence over the whole of that people. Which, you know, I admit is not that different than what we're talking about in some other religions. Go ahead.
But just to kind of tie up, you know, what I was talking about with you know, the land there and the wall and all that.
Running a wall through that land would probably have some kind of spiritual consequence, even if nobody's there. I would think that's the case.
And as far as you you know, I know politically, you know, as far as the government sees it, you know, and this is something I was writing about too, that I anticipate on posting really soon. I'm writing like 3 different articles right now, but it's interesting that government, you know, and politicians, you know, and it's they can't possibly see land as sacred because it's not up to government and politicians to see land as sacred because government and politicians aren't religion.
Well,
And government, you know, and it's interesting that you have the people who are defending open borders. You know, most of them happen to be, you know, unless you're talking about like, well, even libertarians who don't believe in borders, you know, they still have a lot in common with you know, the left as far as the left's open border policies, and yet a lot of those people, you know, I don't want to say, you know, that most of them are not religious. I think a lot of people, you know, people who I know who are libertarian also tend to veer towards like a lot of Eastern traditions and you know, Buddhism and first, you know, in like kind of paganism and things like that. So I guess in that sense, you know, I can see how you know, they wouldn't want government involved anyway. You know, that's their whole view. It's like they just want to see no government, not just no borders, but no government, and they just want to see a rule by nature, right? Rule according to natural law, basically. Whereas, you know, the actual people working in government, they just want to break down the borders because, you know, it's all about economics. It's all about cheap labor. It's all about, you know, all these different economic kind of implications that have to do with open borders. But none of it's sacred. None of it. None of it has to do with you know, kind of values and that have to do with religion and sacred kind of values and sacred ideals.
Yeah, well, and the thing is that in generations past, it would have mattered. In fact, especially, but not all, not just, but certainly in the Christian tradition, despite fake history to the contrary, most Christian people in the United States did their best to respect the Native Americans' religious and spiritual beliefs. They did, and not to just diss on them. In fact, you know, in general, especially Catholic missionaries, your Bible thumpers aren't like this, but Catholic missionaries and them will be like starting with, you know, immediately recognizing anything that's good, wholesome, and pure in some people's, you know, existing tradition. And, you know, Christians tend to let people incorporate that in. So now that knowing that he became Catholic, Black Elk, a great spiritual master who had visions and stuff like that, that's a believable story because, I mean, we see that all over the place. And, yeah. Governments used to respect these spiritual things in a big way. In fact, the U.S. government still, there's remnants of it, right? There's things that Indian tribes are allowed to do within their authentic, ancient religious traditions that you're not allowed to do off reservations, like use certain drugs like ayahuasca. Because this historically Christian nation always went out of its way to say, you know, I mean, Christianity is a choice. We still respect your spiritual beliefs otherwise, as long as they're not, you know.
And there's also this just general, as far as human rights, I haven't really looked into to what groups are involved, but the whole connection with CNN too is kind of interesting because Ted Turner was the founder of CNN,
Hey,
and Ted Turner is very much connected with the United Nations.
All those billionaire media moguls are in with the United Nations. That's one of the reasons Trump is so unpopular. He's a threat to all of that. All the big six media corporations and the internet giants are all of one basic globalist orientation. Ted Turner and Rupert Murdoch's are like the black sheep of a very like, I won't even call them better, maybe slightly less. I mean, they're part of the same establishment. People like Rupert Murdoch and Ted Turner, they're just ornery and dissent on some issues. This is why I also am pretty sure that I believe the rumors that Alex Jones is ultimately Ted Turner's property, or at least Ted Turner owns a part of him. I think that that's probably true. So yeah.
Yeah, just like the whole fiasco with Soros is just kind of not really a conflict. I mean, it's like I don't doubt that there's people who are intentionally kind of sowing seeds of conflict in order to carry out an agenda that doesn't. There's a lot of people. For example, a lot of people who are pro-Trump who are against the United Nations, and they want to see the United Nations completely dismantled.
Yeah, Trump can do that.
And I understand that. I was recently listening to a video on No More News Channel. It's KNOW More News. And he's all basically, his name is Adam. I don't remember his last name, but he's basically promoting not promoting, but he's defending the whole boycott, divestment, and sanctions thing, and that was something I was looking at.
This is rambling a little too much, and I really want to close the stream up.
Okay, well, basically what I was getting at was that I wouldn't be surprised if CNN is still pushing the United Nations agenda that Ted Turner helped. Like he funded the United Nations Foundation, or the United Nations Fund. He donated $1 billion to start that whole fund.
That does not.
And the United Nations also recognizes. I mean, you can look up the United Nations rights of indigenous people, and it seems nice on the surface because, oh, okay, well, indigenous people have rights. But I think that what the United Nations is basically using it as a cover for is socialism.
Yeah, because they
global
don't
socialism.
Yes, because you look at any UN project, and by the way, feminism will be all over it, and all kinds of other dodgy ideological stuff will be all over it. It is actually to destroy these indigenous people that they are supposedly uplifting, mostly by making them a dependent slave class in one way or another. So listen, I really want to close the stream up. This has been fun, everybody. This is what we do every night here now. We have a round table where we start on one topic and who knows where it ends up. But this was fun. If someone reminds me, I might take that little off-the-cuff preaching about the Eucharist and sacrifice and put it up as its own separate thing, if I remember and have the energy. All right, everybody. Well, remember, hit that tip jar on redpillreligion.com or become a patron, and God bless.